Breaker Crunchers! It's Saturday night in Phoenix, Arizona, and you are watching another episode of Couch Crunchers. I will be your host tonight, Lance, and with me is Sam, the movie mechanic, or the haunting of Mama. I don't get that reference, Sam.
The haunting of Joe Mama?
Joe Mama. So I read it Joe Mama, and I'm like, I don't get that.
Joe Mama. Oh my gosh, Lance.
Makes a
Yo
lot.
Mama jokes. Yo Mama jokes from don't you remember elementary school? Yo Mama.
So how are you doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm doing great. I'm having a great week. We, as you know, this is week 4 of Dodgeball, Triple D Dodgeball League. And we were running kind of a skeleton crew on Wednesday night. But despite the fact that we only had 8 players, we had spectacular, and I mean spectacular, highlights. We had a guy, as he's running across the court, someone throws a ball at him, and he catches it in his armpit. Pop! Like that. We had another guy. Well, actually, it was the same guy. He has 2 guys throwing balls at him. He catches one, pop, and then catches the other one, pop, within a second. Pop, pop, just like that. And then yours truly, as I'm playing, I decided I was going to play a more aggressive defense. Instead of running to the back of the court, I was going to run up on the guy who's throwing the ball and try and shake him up while they're throwing so that it can kind of get a better chance of catching.
Yeah.
So as I'm running up, he throws the ball, and I freaking caught it between my legs. It was the last out of that particular game, and the crowd, like everyone in the game just like dropped and was like, "Whoa, that was crazy, dude!"
So has this posted yet? Has the video of this posted?
Oh yeah, we do the live stream as we play.
Oh, okay.
If you want to see that particular play, you go to the live stream. I've shared it on my Facebook. Mm-hmm. It's also part of the Triple D Dodgeball League Facebook group, which is a public group. You can go see it there. But that particular play, my particular play, is at time signature 31:08. So you can see that, or you can watch the whole. It's about an hour of dodgeball.
I've watched a lot of the videos from the past nights that you've had. I haven't seen the videos of this week, but because I wanted to see what Corbin's like. Yeah, and
yeah,
Corbin's pretty good, dude.
He's pretty good. We're all trying to get a sense of what our physical limitations are.
Yeah,
and then once you know what your physical limitations are, then you can kind of start building a strategy around your limits. So I hit my limits quite early in the season. And so now I'm having to change up my strategy in order to shake things up. So my younger brother, who's also in the league, is far more athletic than I am. And because he's so much more athletic, I've had to change my strategy so that as he moves to the back of the court, I move up to the front of the court to try and change things up. And it makes people think I'm way more athletic than I actually am.
Well, you're the most athletic one of the 4 of the Couch Crunchers.
Well, I don't know how high of a bar that is, Lance, but I'll take the compliment as it's intended.
I know Tyler thinks he's like Iron Man champion, but
he has yet to show up at Dodgeball. He keeps telling me he's going to come, but I have yet to see him.
Yeah, we all have our skills. Dodging balls nor wrenches is one of mine. So
yeah.
So yeah, man.
Dodging balls nor wrenches.
Give me a sec. So
instant replay. I love it.
Yeah. Doing the instant replay. Yeah. So my week was pretty lame, I guess you could say. I worked a lot because my coworker is out of town, so I had to kind of pull double duty. And school's been kicking my butt, dude.
What are you studying? You still studying underwater basket weaving?
Yeah. I'm getting okay with it, but it's those dang hook around.
You gotta hold your breath for a long, long time. Gotta hold your breath for a long, long time.
I wanted to come up with something clever, like some cool weaving terminology. This is why we should rehearse, dude. But yeah, man. Although I did do something this week and finished Bly Manor, which is our topic of the night. The Haunting of Bly Manor, the follow-up to The Haunting of Hill House, although it's an anthology, so it's not a
sequel.
Not a sequel, but it's from Mike Flannigan. So that'll be our topic tonight. But I wanted to know, Sam, is there anything that you have seen recently, a new show or maybe something old that you kind of want to get in the radar of some of our listeners?
Well, I did finish The Boys. I finished all 8 episodes of The Boys finally. I know a lot of people were probably way ahead of me on that one. They released the last episode 8, probably
I think it was
a week and a half ago.
Last week's show. Because I think I asked last week, I said, hey, you guys want to talk about Boys? And none of you guys had seen it yet.
Yeah, but I did finally finish it. I thought it ended okay. I feel like they take it to some very dark places, and I don't know if that's really my style.
Yeah.
The last scene of Homelander, for example, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if it's supposed to be comedic or just really serious. I don't know how they're taking it. Like, is this supposed to be as depraved as people in real life are, or I don't know. But it wasn't my cup of tea to watch Homelander finish the season. You know what I'm talking about? He's really finishing on the season.
That scene with I always want to say Stormbreaker, and that's not her name. What's
Stormfront?
Stormfront. Where Ryan, okay, we're gonna get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the last episode of The Boys, you're being forewarned. But Ryan, the son of Homelander and Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
Blasts Stormfront with his laser eyes right before she's about to kill his mother, Rebecca. And the next scene, you see her just charred with all her limbs missing and everything.
She was Anakin.
Yeah, essentially.
She was Anakin.
And she was speaking in German, and that was awesome, dude. I loved it. Well, I love it anytime they show Nazis getting seriously injured.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, she's basically been Anakin'd. She's not dead. You know what's weird? You know what's weird? Saying Anakin is very close to Anna Kendrick.
That's true.
Weird that I just made that connection.
Have you been on the grass a little bit today? Because that's usually.
Yeah, I don't know. I did mow the grass today, so maybe that has something.
You got a contact high from the Bermuda.
It's the winter rye. We're putting in our winter rye.
You already put your winter rye in? Okay,
yeah,
now
we're working on it. We're seeding.
Now we're getting into boredom territory. We're talking about winter rye in Bermuda. Yeah, so I love that scene, man. Well, there was a couple of shocking scenes in the last couple episodes. The one where they're apprehending that guy in the alley, and all of a sudden they get turned on, and he smashes his head against the brick wall.
Oh yeah,
aroused, I guess you could say.
He's trying to get there.
Yeah, that's why I watch this show. It's like you see all this comic stuff, right? I mean, we have the Umbrella Academy, which is kind of outlandish, and we have all these other shows that are kind of doing the same thing. But you watch The Boys because they're going to go into a realm that none of the other ones are going to go into, right?
That's true.
And so the shocking images of the heads being smashed up against the wall and barbecued Nazis and stuff like that is why you watch The Boys, right?
Well, yeah, that's why some people do.
It's a little taste of something different. So, but I liked it. I mean, I liked season 1 more, but season 2 was pretty good, and I'm excited to see Dean Winchester, Jensen Ackles join the cast next season as Soldier Boy.
Yeah, that's right. Soldier Boy. We talked about that a little bit on Absolute Geek last night, which I did appear on Absolute Geek, and we had a great time last night. And we talked about, there's probably going to be some overlap tonight, but talked about Jensen Ackles coming on. Soldier Boy for season 3 started filming. It looks like he's going to be starting in episode 1.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love it, dude. I think it's great. He's one of my favorites. He is my pick to play. Who's the one that I keep? I wanted him as Red Hood when he was a little bit younger, but he was almost Hawkeye at one point. He screen tested for Captain America, and I want him to see him in that comic realm. So this will be a close enough for me, I guess I could say. What I want to know is if we'll ever see him, in this next season, Superman that hoe.
Superman that hoe.
You know what I'm talking about? Soldier Boy.
Yeah, Soldier Boy, the rapper.
Yeah,
and his lyric, Superman that hoe.
I would love to just see them do the dance, just one. It's just kind of like a little wink. I posted that on Twitter. Jensen Ackles, when it was announced, Jensen Ackles was cast as Soldier Boy, but I spelt it the way the rapper spells it, with a J, I think, or something like that. I posted a picture of Soldier Boy, and nobody understood what the heck I was talking about. It's probably because nobody really knows what that dude looks like, because that's really his only hit.
Yeah. Well, the question is, overlapping audiences.
It's true.
Is Soldier Boy's audience the same as The Boys' audience or Supernatural's audience? Are those the same? And there's probably not a whole lot of overlap. There might be a little bit, but it's probably not as big as you'd hope.
It's true. I think I just dipped my toe into a lot of different, Yeah,
you are definitely tasting a lot of different fandoms. You're in close proximity to a lot of different fandoms. You're the center of the Venn diagram, if you will.
I mean, I don't love everything like Max, but I don't hate everything either, like Tyler.
Hey, you can't say that. Tyler loves Stuber.
Dave Bautista.
Yeah, Tommy Boy. He loves Chris Farley movies. Don't forget about that.
Speaking of Chris Farley, this is more Chris Farley adjacent. Have you watched Hubie Halloween yet?
I haven't watched Hubie Halloween. I don't want to watch it unless I have to, and I don't know if we've decided we're going to review that movie yet.
We are not, but
okay.
my kids really want to watch it, so I'm going to be watching it. And I like Adam Sandler. It's a good separation from reality.
So did you watch it? You did watch it?
I haven't seen it yet. No,
but
okay.
I'm
actually hearing it's pretty funny.
Yeah. So my criteria is it better or worse than Ernest Scared Stupid? Because Ernest Scared Stupid was pretty good.
It's the pinnacle.
It's the pinnacle of Halloween comedies.
Yeah, I could see that. My issue with with this movie is I watched the trailer to show my kids to see if they'd be interested in watching it. I could understand maybe 20% of what he was saying. So I don't know if you've seen the trailer yet.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer.
Like this water boy mixed with Little Nicky type accent to him. It sounds like he has a mouthful of bubblegum a little bit. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, dude. But I do want to watch it because one half of Keenan and Kel is in it. Keenan Thompson from SNL. And that's worth it enough for me.
Yeah, it seems like along the lines where Adam Sandler has kind of become the Ernest P. Worrell of modern comedy.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if I feel up to it. I just don't know. Can you go close the door, please?
So let's get into Oh, I do want to say something. So I just watched, based on Matt from Absolute Geek's recommendation,
Utopia.
Utopia on Amazon Prime. I finished.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you I started that as well. So after I finished The Boys, I started watching Utopia. I got about 3/4 of the way through the first episode.
Yeah.
Then I had to stop it because my wife took over the TV for some reason. But
you just gotta be like me, dude, and have a TV in every room. If I get kicked off one, I can go somewhere else and finish watching. No, I watched the entire season. It's only 8 episodes in 2 days. So I finished it today, the last episode. And it's really, what's the word I'm looking for? With the whole coronavirus thing, it's really, is topical the right word? Like, what would be the right word?
Timely? It's timely?
It's timely, yeah. So essentially what it is, it's about this pandemic that closely, the whole, how the pandemic is released and everything like that, it closely aligns this comic book called Utopia. And Utopia, the comic book, basically becomes like a book of revelations type thing, where they can find clues in it to figure out how to stop this virus that's being released by this evil corporation. And it's pretty good. It's nice and bloody, and it's very boys adjacent, I would say. Not superhero. There's no superheroes in it, even though it's about a comic book, but it kind of has that same vibe almost, I guess you would say. You only watched 3/4 of the first episode though, right?
Yeah, I got to the part where they come in and steal the money, but they haven't recovered the comic book yet. They're giving everybody the shots in the arms.
In the hotel room. The kids that first found the comic.
Yeah.
In the hoarder's house. Yeah, it's pretty good, man. I would recommend watching it. It's really easy to watch. It's Rainn Wilson's a bit more serious in it than we are used to seeing him. But it's pretty good. And then, of course, I'm almost done with 6 Feet Under. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but that show is fantastic.
Yeah, that came out a long time ago, though, right?
Yeah, it's old. It's old. I was a bit too young to watch it when it came out. Well, I wasn't too young. I was just too poor to afford HBO, essentially. So, and dude, I bought a new car.
You got a new car? Yeah, I saw you sold your big van.
Yeah.
So you replaced it with an even bigger van.
No, we bought a Ford
RV.
An RV. Well, I've seen the writing on the wall, and I thought maybe I should get something that I could eventually sleep in, because my wife is tired of the Funko addiction. No, I'm just kidding. No, we bought a Ford Explorer. The van was just getting too old and too expensive to maintain, so we sold it to a moving company. They bought it, and we bought a Ford Explorer. It's a little bit more manageable. But
you sold your family vehicle to a moving company. What does that tell you?
It's old and cheap enough for them to. He's like, if I can get it to run for a year, it's money well spent. So I'm like, okay, dude, have fun.
Yeah, that's great.
But
glad it worked out for that guy.
Yeah, so we bought this car completely online. Like, they came, so I went online, got pre-approved with my credit card company to go shop for cars. Found a car that I liked. They had them bring it to the house, test drove it at my house around my neighborhood and stuff. Liked it, signed the paper on the kitchen table, and he left. And that was it.
And you had the car. It was yours.
Yeah, so it was so much better than going to a dealership, sitting there all day, haggling over, financing and all that stuff. And it was awesome, dude. Just call my credit card company, told them what I want to pay. They said, okay, we can do that. And then that was it.
Dude, that's so awesome. That's so hassle-free.
I know, dude. It was amazing. And then here's the other thing. So we bought it from Superstition Springs Lexus, which if you ever buy a car, that's a really good place to go, because as long as you own that vehicle, you get lifetime car washes. Like, car washes, they vacuum the interior and everything. As long as you own the vehicle, you can take it every day for as long as you have that car, and they will wash your car and vacuum it out and everything for free.
That's nice.
Isn't that awesome? I've never heard.
Super nice.
Yeah. So I'm like, I can cancel that $20 a month I was paying for the stupid car wash down the street.
Perfect.
I know, right? So let's get into our main topic of the night: The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is from the, I guess you could call it the Haunting Anthology. Is that what?
Yeah.
What next Netflix is calling it, the Haunting series or whatever?
Yeah, the hauntings of.
Yeah.
It was. I think you have to frame it in terms of this series of Mike Flannigan tales.
Right.
The Haunting of Hill. So I'm going to take the three Mike Flannigan works I've seen in the past 3 years. So Haunting of Hill House was in 2018, Dr. Sleep in 2019, and then Bly Manor in 2020. Haunting of Hill House was so good.
Right.
It's like every jump scare moment, it pops out at you at the beginning of the series, and then you see it again midway through when you understand a little bit more of what's going on, but then you don't really understand it until the end of the series. So you're seeing the same scene 3 times, and one of them that really stands out in my mind is the bent neck lady.
Right.
Which this little girl, this one character, when she's a little girl, she sees the bent neck lady, and then she sees the bent neck lady again as she's a little older. And then at the end of the series, spoiler alert, you find out that the little girl grows up, and when she dies and becomes a ghost, she is the bent neck lady. And so it like ties all of these moments together in such an interesting and surprising way, and also scary. Like when you first see the bent neck lady, it's terrifying. It's a very quick, dreadful moment that really sticks with you through the series, and then every time it comes back up, you're shocked by it.
Right.
And it's so well orchestrated. I loved that about Hill House, because they had several threads like that through the series. And then on top of that, to add to the creepiness of Hill House, you have these random ghosts that really don't interact with the plot in any meaningful way, just hanging around in the house.
Yeah, so my wife and I were watching Bly Manor, and I said, we got like 6 episodes in. I was like, I'm really bothered because I'm sitting here looking for all these little secret things that Mike Flannigan likes to do in this show that The Haunting of Hill House became famous for, that we stopped watching Bly Manor, and I went and looked up a YouTube video just to show my wife of all the hidden ghosts.
Yeah.
There's like 46 of them or something like that, of all the hidden ghosts in Hill House. I was like, there's nothing like that in the show. And to speak on what you were talking about with the bent neck lady, like this nice little bow, that's one of the best parts of Hill House, is these nice little wrapped packages that are completely formed. I didn't get that with Bly Manor. Like they tease it in the beginning with the boyfriend or the fiance with the glasses, right? And you see glimpses of them in the reflections and everything like that. And it's jarring whenever you see him, right? He looks very comical, right? Not like the bent neck lady that looks very frightening. And you keep thinking there's going to be some resolution with this ghost, right? But there never is. Well, find out why he has the glowing glasses.
Yeah, sure.
But then you notice he just disappears?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you when it happens. And I knew it was going to go this way, but I was also disappointed that it went this way.
Yeah.
Because the thing with Hill House, and why I say it was well orchestrated, is because you have these threads with each of the characters where there's something that kind of haunts them individually. And it's related to their own trauma, their own personal trauma.
Right.
And all of these personal threads and all these personal traumas all resolve in the final episode at the same time.
Right.
But you see them in at least 3 different lights throughout the series. Right? The first time it's very scary, very weird. The second time you see it, it's still scary, but it's more intriguing than weird. And then when you finally see it, you're like, okay, so it wasn't it wasn't this horrible thing that I initially thought. It was actually something reaching out to help these poor people. But because they didn't understand it at the time, it was terrifying. It was frightening.
Right.
And so you see it in these three different lights throughout their life. The child timeline, then the adult period, and then again at the resolution when you finally see how it wraps up, and it kind of resolves both the supernatural haunting as well as their personal trauma at the same time.
Which speaks to the skill of Mike Flannigan, is he can show you the same thing 3 times in 3 different ways, and each time elicit a different response, like a different emotional response from the viewer, right? Because in the first, it's like, this is terrifying. The second is like, well, what is that? And the third, you're like, I get it. Like, you know what I mean? It has a more of a calming, like,
yeah, but that's how humans kind of deal with trauma,
right,
to begin with, right? The first time you have a traumatic experience, it shocks you to the very core. And then the next time that you confront that experience, you don't immediately go into the freeze mode. You start to kind of, your body fights back against that trauma. And then eventually you get to a point, maybe it's not the third time, maybe it's the 5th or the 10th or the 100th time, you finally confront and overcome that trauma. And that's kind of how Hill House goes, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very visceral, but also cathartic experience to go through the haunting of Hill House. Bly Manor, the thing that I really was disappointed about Bly Manor was there. First off, it wasn't scary. There's no scares to be had. The scariest thing was the glasses, right? The guy with the glasses, the shadowy guy with the glasses. And having seen Hill House, I was like, okay, I know where this is going. That's her guilt. That is the form her guilt has taken. And as the story goes, we're going to find out the specific manner in which this guilt has taken form. It's not an actual ghost. It's just her own guilt. And so halfway through, she finally gets to the point where she shares the story of the formation of her guilt with the gardener.
Right.
And that kind of starts in motion the catharsis, the resolution of her trauma. But the thing is, she finishes that conversation and she still sees the guy and it still scares her. And so we don't ever get to the point where she has resolved that particular guilt. In fact, she just basically replaces it by absorbing the lady, Viola, and we never get to see that particular issue resolve.
That's what I hated. Because all of a sudden I'm watching it and the series ends and I'm like, wait a minute. There was this thing that was haunting her, the ex-boyfriend, and it could be guilt, it could be a ghost or whatever. I leaned to it was a ghost mainly because his glasses had this flashing thing on it and she was in the car. She never saw him.
No. That's not correct. So she was in the car, and as he steps out of the car in anger, he looks up and she sees the reflection of the lights in his glasses. And then he gets
standing above the car. How would she see that?
He was standing just outside the door, and she looks up. She's watching him get out of the car, and right in that moment, smack.
Yes, right? I didn't feel that way. I felt like he was enough out of view to where she wouldn't have seen that.
No, it did. Well, I don't know about her, but as far as me, the viewer, I did see the light. I did see the light. Yeah, you did see the light in his glasses.
So we saw it, and I was like, oh, that's the light. Like, that was the switch for me, right? And I thought, oh, maybe this is a ghost because he's using this as a way to mess with her. Because really, he could hold her responsible for being the reason that he died if he was a vengeful ghost or whatever it could be. But eventually, once all the stuff starts happening at the house with the faceless lady and all this other stuff, that whole storyline is just completely forgotten about, and that you never return to it.
Yeah. And that was something that there was a lot of things there that I really missed. So first off, some of the scariest things is when from Hill House is when the kids feel threatened, right? Because as an adult, there's nothing scarier than either reliving scary moments as a child where you felt helpless and vulnerable, or envisioning your children in scary moments where they're helpless and vulnerable. Those are very scary situations. But the kids in Bly Manor are the ones who are basically running the show. And they're the ones who know what's going on. And so they're never really threatened, honestly. And so there's not really this fear factor. It's more of a mystery factor. The kids just don't want to tell anybody what's going on. They're keeping it a secret. And
because they're afraid of the ghosts that are instructing them on what to do, correct? Isn't that kind of why they're keeping it a secret? Well, the boy, I'm not sure, but the little girl is afraid of what will happen if she tells them what's going on, right? She's afraid of what will happen to her nanny, as she's already seen that Miss Jessel was killed, right? She's afraid what will happen. That's the way I understand it.
I don't know that that's the case. I feel like it's one of these. It wasn't like really super explained, but I feel like the kids' motivation is they miss mom and dad, and Miss Jessel and I forget the dude's name, but Miss Jessel and the boyfriend are using that feeling of longing to be with the parents to manipulate them to do what they want.
Oh yeah, because they think that if they go through with this plan, they'll get to see their parents again, correct?
They'll get tucked away in a memory with mom and dad, and then they'll be able to be happy.
That guy's name is Peter, by the way.
Yeah, Peter.
So,
yeah.
Which is very okay. So I saw The Turning last year with Finn Wolfhard and a bunch of other people I don't remember. Awful movie. Save your money. Don't go see it. But
it's based on the same story, The Turning of the Screw.
Yeah. So you have the Turning and Haunting of Bly Manor, which follow from The Turn of the Screw. And The Turning, so there's a point where the nanny is trying to take the little girl and run from the estate, right?
Yeah.
And then a lot more happens in Bly Manor after that point, right? The faceless lady comes and takes the lady. Well, The Turning ends right there when they're trying to run from the thing. That's the end. There's no resolution. There's nothing. Basically, I sat in this theater with a bunch of people that we all looked at it and were like, wait, it's done? Like I heard several people audibly say, wait a minute. Where's the rest?
Yeah, that sucks.
But so I can give it up to Bly Manor for at least having an ending to this, The Turn of the Screw, which has been adapted into a film so many times before it, right? But
were you satisfied with the ending?
No.
I felt like they dragged the ending out a lot. Like
I think they were trying to show that there was a lot of time that passed from leaving the house to the point where the whatever happened to the nanny. I can't remember her name. What's her name?
Danny the nanny.
Yeah, Danny. There was a lot of time that passed. So like the faceless lady was just biding her time to make this girl go crazy, essentially. So I get why they were showing this, but I think they could have just done it and condensed it quite a bit and still had that same amount of time pass.
Yeah, I think by dragging it out, they really took a lot of the effect away from those moments. And I felt like that last episode, after they left the manor, it went on and on and on and on and on. And didn't really give us anything, didn't give us a ton that was worth sticking around for.
Well, and every time you thought something was about to happen, it was basically just a reflection of the faceless lady in a sink full of water or something like that. It wasn't any of these big, like, oh my gosh, like that big climax moment never really happened. I mean, I think that the climax moment was when the faceless lady grabs Danny and starts dragging her through the house, right?
Yeah.
So we get the episode. We get the episode that's showing us the history of the house with the previous owners and what had happened with the dresses and the two sisters and the husband that the one sister died, married the other. You know what I'm talking about? So the episode before that, we see the faceless lady grab Danny, start dragging her off. Credits. Then we get a throwback episode that shows why the house is this way, the setup.
Yeah, how it became haunted. Yeah.
Right. And then we get back in the history of the faceless lady is essentially what it is, which that was a really cool episode. I like that one.
Me too.
I thought maybe that was one of the highlights of the entire series.
Yeah. And it probably had the only jump scare in the whole series where out of the dress come the arms.
Yeah.
That was good. That was a good part.
It. And then seeing the sister when the husband finds the sister on the floor after she'd been attacked by this dress, and all kind of discombobulated or whatever. She's, all malformed, or what's the word I'm looking for? Help me. She's all messed up.
Mangled. Yeah.
Mangled. Thank you. Mangled. That was a cool scene. But the fact that it was set in black and white, the entire episode was in black and white, just kind of made it feel very retro and very, it added to the tenseness of it.
Yeah, they had the black and white, but then if you noticed, as time progressed, as the generations progressed, it went from black and white to like a sepia tone, and then to kind of a bland coloring. Like they went back and colored in the black and white film until finally it was full color, to kind of show the progress of time. And that was really neat. But then they had to drag it on and on and on in the final episode. And my goodness, they really know how to drag things out.
Yeah. Which I didn't feel that was the case with the Hill House.
No, not at all. They resolved, and then it kind of cuts to the birthday cake, and he blows out the candles, and that's everything's wrapped up really nice, and it feels good, and then the show's over.
Well, and this was the other thing that bothered me about the end, right? Because speaking on what you're saying, so essentially we find out the narrator is the gardener, right? And which I figured that out. I think in the 4th episode, I was like, oh, they have the same accent. That's the gardener, right? So I quickly figured that out. Then they have her sitting in this room. It's apparently the night before a wedding or something like that. She's telling the story to the bride and groom and some of their guests. And the bride turns out to be the little girl, right? Yep. But you kind of get that inclination from the very first minute they show the bride, right? In that last scene where she's telling the story. But they do that stupid thing. It was like, oh, well, whatever the little girl's, Flora is my middle name. Like it was supposed to be some sort of reveal. But obviously the gardener knows who she is, right? So it didn't hold the, oh my gosh, that's her as an adult moment that I think was intended. Did you feel that way? Like, was that a shock to you? Because I figured it out and then felt that the Flora's my middle name line was just kind of stupid.
Okay, so it's okay to tell something once in a show, but if you have to say it more than once, then it's a waste, right?
Yeah.
You only get to tell the information one time, because video or film is a very time sensitive medium. So you have to be quick, you have to be concise. And so they did show us in the wedding reception scene how everybody was represented at the wedding and in the story. Mm-hmm. So it really wasn't necessary to kind of be so on the nose. And I don't think that they were trying to be on the nose. I think they got a little too cute with Flora as my middle name. But I don't think it was too rough. I thought it was okay. They could have done it a little tighter. They could have done a little tighter, but it wasn't too bad, in my opinion.
Yeah. I just thought it was a little bit eye-rolling. It was nothing new. We've seen that before where they tell a story and then it jumps into the current timeline. They're like, oh, but this is my middle name. And you're like, oh, that's the kid from that we've been watching this whole time, right?
Yeah.
As an adult. So we've seen it 100 times, in various different, time type shows, right? Or movies or whatever.
For sure.
I go to the Mike Flannigan stuff because it feels unique and new, right? So Dr. Sleep and Hill House, both of those were very new versions of very watered down genre, right? Horror movies and things like that. We've all seen The Shining. We all love The Shining, but he figured out a way to make Dr. Sleep new and exciting and added all these new elements into it and just made it a really awesome movie. Dr. Sleep was one of the best movies I saw last year. Loved it.
Yeah, in a year that was chock full of great movies, Dr. Sleep
stood out
amongst the cream of the crop.
And it's a shame that it didn't do that great in theaters. And I think it has to do more with the time it was released and stuff, and there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare about its release. But it just, those were so unique, Hill House and Dr. Sleep. And then they come out with Bly Manor, and Bly Manor just throughout the whole show just felt more of the same old stuff. There was nothing new. There were no little hidden nuggets of things that you had to look for to keep you on your toes. Because you get to the point with Hill House where you're looking for the zombies, right? You're like,
yeah, you can go back for a second or third viewing and find new details that you missed.
Right. So you're looking for these. When you start realizing that there's people hidden, you start looking for them, and then something happens and it takes you out of that mode of where you're looking for these ghosts. And it's like, oh, what the heck happened, right? Like it takes you off your center, right? Because with Bly Manor, you're watching a story unfold, and there's no hidden things that are happening, and you're just watching the story. But with Hill House, you have to pay attention to so many different things, and there's so many unique things happening that once something does happen, it distracts you, and it just makes for a really exciting show.
And one of the things that I think Hill House did that was really good, that Bly Manor probably should have done, is Hill House didn't explain every little detail. It was chock full of details, but it didn't explain them all. Whereas in Bly Manor, all of the faceless ghosts who had been in the house for, decades or centuries, they were all present in Flora's little dollhouse, and they went through and they told us about all of the ghosts that ended up in the house, and you could see them represented in the dollhouse, and we saw them when we kind of got to know them throughout the show. And Hill House wisely, I think, refrained from explaining to us how every single ghost got to that house. There's dozens of ghosts in Hill House, and they didn't go through and tell us about every single one.
Right.
And with Bly Manor, part of the scary things are the fact that you don't know them. You don't know what's going on. And Bly Manor went through and told us everything that was going on. The one surprise for me that I thought was really clever was how they treated the housekeeper.
Yeah, I liked her story.
So her story was very interesting because she was a ghost the entire time. From the moment that Danny shows up, she is a ghost. And It's really fascinating how they portray her in the house as somebody who doesn't realize that they're dead, doesn't realize that she's dead, and she's just kind of going about her daily behaviors as though she wasn't dead because she doesn't realize she is. And it takes several episodes. Like you're almost halfway through the show before you realize, okay, maybe there's something going on here that isn't what meets the eye. There's something deeper here, and maybe she's dead.
Well, initially what I thought was, so when we're introduced to her, we're at the moment when she dies, right? So Danny comes up, meets her. This was literally seconds after Miles. Is it Miles?
Yeah, it's Miles.
Pushes her down a well, right? She dies. And she's looking at her body down this well. Danny comes up and those two characters meet. But it doesn't show you that the first time you see it. You learn about that several episodes in when you finally realize that she was pushed down a well at that moment. Before they showed me that, I was thinking that maybe she was possessed, right? Maybe she was in on the whole thing and she's possessed by some entity, much like Miles is for a lot of the series, right?
Right, but there's little details that you start to take notice of. So one is you never see her eat. Every time that they serve a meal, she skips it.
Yeah.
You never see her go to bed. Like she just kind of wanders off, or she'll just vanish. She's constantly, one of the more obvious ones is she's constantly lost in thought.
Yeah, she's almost like just thinking all the time, and like in these moments where she just paused.
Yeah, and then they finally start to show you how that all stacks up and reveal that, oh, well, the reason why is because she's a ghost and she's getting caught and tucked away in these moments. And
what do they call it? Dream surfing, or what do they call it?
I think dream surfing. I don't think they use the word surfing, but it's something like that.
But I loved that element of seeing these little minute moments in time constantly repeating. And like she has that where she's interviewing Owen, right? Yeah. And we see this moment happen several times, but each time it's a little different until Owen, who is just part of the housekeeper's entity or whatever.
Well, he's the cook. He's the cook.
Right.
Yeah.
But in that moment, that scene is her replaying this moment, but it's not actually Owen sitting in front of her. Right. So he starts to become cognitive and having a discussion with her, and now she realizes she's having a discussion with herself.
Right.
The more we see that playing over, she's like, oh, I'm in it again. And we see Flora do that a couple times too, reliving moments over and over again, which was similar to Hill House. Kind of had that same effect towards the last few episodes. They were having moments that were repeating, right? Yeah. If I remember correctly. So that was really cool seeing that play out again in kind of a different light. I liked that element. So when I kind of bash on this show a little bit, I didn't hate it, right? It just wasn't anything that in a couple years, if you ask me about it, that I'm going to remember much of it, right? There was nothing that was like, that was amazing, right? Like Hill House. Like you talk to me about Hill House in 10 years, I'm like, that's the show with all the hidden ghosts. That show was awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing about this show that makes it unique, nothing that makes it stand out in time. I did think the actors and actresses did a very fine job. But, Tyler likes your name. The Haunting of Joe Mama. Joe Mama. I keep saying Mama.
Joe Mama.
Joe Namath. The Haunting of Joe Namath. So there's nothing in the show that makes it unique or stand out. The performances are fine and everything like that. But so I don't want people to think it's a bad show. It's just I think Sam and I were probably the biggest fans of Hill House on our little Cruncher unit, right? Would you say, Sam? I think you and I loved it the most.
I absolutely loved it, and I think it's probably should be on anybody who loves horror. Anybody who loves horror should watch Hill House because it is fantastic.
I think it's just anybody that loves storytelling, like really good storytelling. Like, yes, it's horror, right? But it's just a good storytelling. Like the way he does it is so unique, right?
Yeah, but it's even better. I mean, I know a lot of people will have a hard time because there are a lot of scary times in Hill House.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you can just suck it up and get through the scary parts, it's kind of like life. If you can get through the scary parts, you'll get the treasure at the end, because there is a big payoff with Hill House.
You're right.
With Bly Manor, it's not scary. So if Hill House is too scary for you, Bly Manor may be right up your alley, because it's not so much a horror as it is kind of a supernatural mystery movie or story. It is, Kyle from Absolute Geek in the chat, he did not enjoy Bly Manor, and I can see why. I mean, Hill House set a very high bar, and Bly Manor just is not the same kind of story. That said, you may enjoy Bly Manor as for what it is, which is not scary.
It's a little bit more horror than what Scooby-Doo is, Tyler. It's not like the Mystery Machine, like Fred and Velma are going to come out and, Shaggy and Scooby. It's not like that. There are some moments where they try to scare you, right? Specifically the faceless lady, wouldn't you say, Sam?
Yeah.
It doesn't stick. It doesn't have that whole moment like Hill House.
Like, think about Hill House, where the kid is hiding under the bed, and the tall man comes in, but his feet aren't quite touching the floor, and then he bends over and looks under the bed at the kid. Like, that moment is so scary, right? You're like, There's not any moments like that in Bly Manor. So the character design isn't as scary. The jump scares aren't as scary. There's one moment where, there's several moments where you see the faceless lady just kind of grab someone by the throat and just drag them through the house.
Which that was really cool how they did that. Like, they turn around and it's just like instant, right? Like,
just
you don't see them lurking or anything, so you don't really know it's ever going to happen. And then as they're dragging, so specifically when she's dragging Peter off, right, in that room, and it's almost like there's like no friction whatsoever. Like, she just has the strength of 1,000 men. She's dragging this dude by the neck through to this room.
Yeah, it's like he's weightless too. Like, he has no weight to her, and she just drags him through the house. And
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool effect, but again, it didn't carry the same like punch of a scare. Like, think about Hill House. I think it's like episode 6 or 7, where the dead sister like pops out in the minivan and is screaming at her sisters all of a sudden, and it's so terrifying to see the ghost face pop up all of a sudden as she's like, stop! And like, that moment is so freaky. But again, you're only seeing it from one perspective, and then when you finally get to the end and it shows you the other perspective, it's like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense. She wasn't trying to scare them, she was trying to help them. And there really wasn't like that same kind of revelation in Bly Manor. So I get why Kyle wasn't a huge fan, because honestly, if we are comparing it to Hill House, because Hill House is, I don't want to say transcendent, but it is very close.
Hill House is one of the best things Netflix has ever come out
ever produced.
Yeah, it was that good. And Dr. Sleep, though not a Netflix property, Dr. Sleep was phenomenal as well.
So good. So
that's kind of a letdown. Sam and I have been talking about Bly Manor since the trailer released back in August? Yeah. We've been talking about our anticipation for the show since August. And when you
I didn't get the same feelings. watching it as I had anticipating it.
Yeah, it was kind of a letdown. It's kind of like with compared to this when Marvel movies comes out, right? We saw Avengers and we saw everything in between the Avengers, and then they announced Age of Ultron, and you're like, oh, James Spader is Ultron, and all this awesome stuff is going to happen, right? And then you watch Age of Ultron, and you're like, meh, meh. Like it's just you walk in with so much anticipation, and then you realize, man, I got hyped up over nothing.
Yeah, Age of Ultron is a lot like Bly Manor because there's nothing scarier in Age of Ultron. The villain is never more threatening than when he's like that acid rotted away robot. And that's the scariest he gets. And then everything after that, you're like, okay, so now he's all roided up as a robot and he makes a bunch of copies of himself, but somehow in making more of himself, he becomes less threatening.
Yeah.
And Bly Manor is kind of like the same thing. So never anything more threatening than the first time you see the faceless lady. And then as the story progresses, she becomes less and less threatening. And ultimately the scare just gets totally fizzled out by the fact that the story just keeps going on and on and on, way beyond its shelf life. So I do think Bly Manor is worth a viewing, but don't go into it thinking I'm going to be scared, because you're not going to be scared.
I'm going to poop myself, essentially. There was moments you turn off Hill House, right? You watch a couple episodes of Hill House late at night, and then after you kind of get this uneasy feeling when you turn it off, right? You're going to bed, all the lights are off, and you feel uneasy. That's, to me, is the best kind of horror, when it gives me that uneasy feeling when I gotta like close all the closet door and stuff, just because I'm a little creeped out, because images are playing through my mind. Bly Manor gives you nothing like that, right? It's absolutely, there's nothing there that creeps you out or anything like that. We're so far. What did we review last week? What was it?
Oh gosh,
Antebellum. So far, right. So far for our month of October, we were trying to fill it with all these scary things. Antebellum was a letdown. Bly Manor was a letdown. Let's hope Books of Blood next week.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Is not a letdown, because otherwise this could be a pretty lame Halloween.
Yeah, I think the story of Bly Manor captured it best, that it really isn't a ghost story, it's a love story, and it's an okay job at a love story mystery, but it doesn't do a whole lot as far as a ghost story horror story. So I was hoping for scares. I was hoping for Hill House, but better. Like I wanted to see where
the intelligence of Mike Flannigan come through in another.
Oh yeah, I wanted to see the orchestrated scares taken to the next level, like I did in Hill House. Because it's hard to go back and watch something a second time and take the same kind of awe, the same kind of amazedness. The feeling of being awestruck by how well orchestrated something is when you know what's coming, right? After you've seen Hill House once, you kind of know where it's going on the second and third viewings. You really know where it's going. So you want to see a new story delivered in the same way. And I was hoping Bly Manor was going to give us that new story with the same scares, the same mystery, the same orchestration, with the big punch at the end that ties it all up. And we got about halfway there, I'd say. Yeah. We didn't get the scares. They tied up some of those mysteries too early. Some of them they dragged on, and they never really did get tied up. One of the things that I thought they should have done, but they didn't do, is show Danny make the choice to go into the lake, and kind of the struggle that she had within herself and between her and the no-face lady. But again, because of the choice they made to make it a narrator tale, not an omniscient narrator, but somebody who was watching things from her own perspective. Because of that choice they made, they really couldn't honestly show that moment. And as a result, I think that was probably the story's weaker for it, because that probably was the crux of the whole show, is getting to the moment where Danny has to make a terrible choice. It's her or her lover, and she chooses to sacrifice herself rather than risk her lover's life.
What they should have done was at that moment when she tells the faceless lady she's about to drag. So the faceless lady is about to drag Flora into the lake, right? You just see their little heads bobbing up there, right? Like
yep.
buoy. Mm-hmm. And she says, "I'll let you in." It's some phrase that they say.
She says, "It's me, it's you, it's us."
Right. At that point, it should have went and they could have had their lives together like nothing happened, right? Then you realize that she actually at that point ends up in the bottom of the lake, and all of this is just playing through her mind, right? It's almost like that dream surfing thing that they're doing, and it's just none of her relationship with the gardener from that point on, where they're living in the big city and going out to dinner with Owen and all that stuff. It's all fake, right? This whole time from that moment, she's been at the bottom of the lake. That could have been a cool reveal.
Yeah, I think that, like, you always want the climax of the movie to be the highest point of tension and the most impactful. And by delaying that moment and stretching it out over, I think it was probably 20, 30 minutes from the moment she says, "It's me, it's you, it's us." Like, that's the key. That's the climax. It's me, it's you, it's us is the climax.
Which we didn't spend too much time on that phrase, because we only learned about that phrase like the episode before or something like that, when the Peter, Miss Jessel, Miles, and Flora thing was happening, right?
Right.
We only learn about it then. They don't spend enough time on that phrase to make an impact. Like, if they would have introduced that in the beginning, like maybe had the mother saying that to Flora or in Miles before she dies or before she leaves or something like that, or maybe have the uncle saying it to the mother who was having an affair with the mother, have him say, give that phrase some sort of significance, because when Dina or whatever her name is says it to the faceless lady, it has no significance to me. It's not supposed to be this big impactful. It's not this big impactful moment. Like, there's no, what I mean?
Well, they do. Okay, so in the black and white episode, they show the origin of the phrase, "It's me, it's you, it's us."
Yeah.
Because Viola Lloyd is the first one to say, "It's me, it's you, it's us." And the problem is that they only get to that phrase late in the game. And I think you're right. If they introduce it earlier, it follows the Hill House rule, where something is said early on and you don't understand the significance. Then it takes on some significance in the middle of the show, and then the full significance is not captured until after the climax or at the climax. And they didn't really do that. And I really would have liked to see more of the internal struggle at the moment of the climax, where she's saying, "It's me, it's you, it's us." I want to see what is going on, what kind of battle is raging inside Danny at that moment, instead of she makes the choice and then she feels the consequences. She feels the consequence over the course of many years afterwards. I felt like they dragged out that moment, and it really took away the impact. And that to me was the reason why it will never live up to Hill House, is because the impact at the final moment just didn't happen.
Well, it will never even live up to the best adaptation of this novel, right? So this novel, The Turn of the Screw, was written in the late 1800s, right?
Right. It's kind of like a contemporary of some of the later Victorian mysteries like Sherlock Holmes and Jekyll and Hyde and those types of things.
It's a very well-regarded novel.
Yeah. Or novella. It's not very long.
Yeah. So we've seen The Turning, which I saw last year. We've seen this, but one that is very loosely takes themes from this novel is The Others, starring Nicole Kidman, right? Fantastic movie. I love that movie. And The Others gives you those moments of the edge of your seat, the jump out moments. I mean, they even spoof it in one of the Scary Movies, I think, and it turns out to be Michael Jackson, like in the. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Something like that. But in the movie with Nicole Kidman, it's an old lady that's taking the body of this little girl, right? And then you get that big reveal at the end. Oh, they're not being haunted. They're the ones doing the haunting, right? You get that big bow on top of this whole gift that's being made to you. You don't really ever get that with this. The biggest, I don't want to call it fan serving but the biggest moment of gratification that they try to deliver you is the very last shot where she falls asleep on the couch, the gardener, now that she's older. What's the name of that actress? Carla. And what's her name?
Gugino.
Yeah. And you don't see Danny again, but you just see Danny's hand resting on her shoulder. And that's supposed to be like this big, nice little bow of love lasts forever. And then you're thinking, after the credits roll, well, that bitch, like, Gardner's been looking for you since you jumped in the lake, like, filling all these things of water. You've never appeared and you've been there the whole time. Like, give her something. Not just a hand on the. She's asleep. Like, what's the matter? She's leaving doors open, hoping that you'll come back. And it gives you the feeling that she's been there the whole time. She's never revealed herself, right? So there's not even the moment that's supposed to be the big bow doesn't even seem that big.
Yeah, at that point the story had dragged on for 20 minutes longer than it needed to, and I was like, okay, well, I'm glad we're done. I'm glad we reached the end.
What I would have liked to see is the 8th episode is the best episode of the series, where it goes back in time, shows the two sisters, their father dying, obtaining the Bly Manor, right? What I would have liked to see is that whole thing happening concurrently,
just kind of split up
episodes of before and after. You right? So you're showing from the very first episode, you're showing scenes in that black and white, and in the middle, then they finally converge at some point. You know what I mean? And that's what Hill House did, right? There's a moment like when they're kids, they're being haunted by these things, and then they get to adults, and it turns out all these things that were haunting them as kids are actually them after they've died, right? So it kind of is full circle. There's no point of full circle in Bly Manor. So
I would disagree with you. I think I would like to see the story of Viola Lloyd told entirely in the background without having to bring it to the forefront, so that you have a reason to go back, and then at the end have somebody say, "You're Viola Lloyd," and then the viewer is like, oh, okay, I saw something about that in episode 1, and I saw something about Viola Lloyd in episode 2. I need to go back and put all the pieces together and see what I missed, and then have to go back and look through the background, kind of like you do in Hill House, hunting for the ghost. What am I missing? I need to go back and see all this stuff instead of having it laid out explicitly in one episode. Told entirely in the background, I think, would have been a fantastic gimmick for this show. Because the one thing that you can't do is condescend to your audience. You have to respect the audience, trust the audience enough to come to you as you're telling this story. And I feel like that's what Hill House did very well. Bly Manor did very poorly. They didn't trust the audience. They had to spell everything out to the audience. And I feel like in the explaining of everything, they ruined everything. So
yeah, I agree.
So I would have liked to see them put everything in the background somewhere for everyone to put the puzzle pieces together. And they, like, for example, when they're in the attic and he pulls up the sister's ghost, Peter pulls up the sister's ghost and she's like, "This is what we're going to become." And I was like, oh, that's the sister. That's the sister's ghost.
Yeah.
Right. And if they had done stuff like that throughout, and instead of, just explaining it to us,
they got too explicit.
They did too much exposition. They should have just trusted us, because they did that. They had the dollhouse. The dollhouse was a great device. I really enjoyed the dollhouse. And in the dollhouse, as I was watching it, I was like, Nikki's my wife. I was like, Nikki, every single one of those dolls in that house is a ghost that exists in Bly Manor. Watch, you'll see it. And sure enough, when they get through the whole story, they explain where all the ghosts are, and each one of them is represented in the dollhouse. So the kids have seen and experienced and understand where all these ghosts are and how they got there, that they were killed by this lady. They don't necessarily understand all their backstory, but maybe, as they're dream surfing, as we've called it, they're understanding a little bit about where these people are coming from. But there was a little stick figure for each of those ghosts. And it would have been nice to be able to put those pieces together for ourselves rather than have them spell it out for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
All right.
So I would have liked to see your idea or mine more than what we got.
Yeah.
What I compared it to when my wife and I were watching it was just like every other CW show that we've seen, where they have all these episodes that are really like, on theme, and then they do this throwback episode to kind of make that climax moment where Danny gets her throat snatched by the faceless lady, to make that last a little bit longer. Like, what happened, right?
Yeah.
CW does that all the time. And I don't watch Netflix or these shows to get more of that CW.
Right.
So it just felt like a little bit too much like network television, and that's not why I pay for Netflix.
Right. You want something transformative for that $20 a month.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, are you ready to give our rating on it?
Yeah. I
kind of got a glimpse of what your rating would be. I want to see if, now that we've talked through it, if that sticks. Do you think it does?
Oh, yeah. I formulated all of this at the same time I posted it on Facebook. So,
yeah.
My opinion hasn't changed. These ideas were all the same ideas I had at the moment that I finished watching it. And so I'm still where I'm at days ago when I finished it, which is 3 cushions out of 5. Meaning, it wasn't what I was hoping for, but I still enjoyed it. I still had a good time. It was 7.5 hours well spent, I think. I had a good time. And it didn't change my ideas about storytelling like Hill House did. But I guess, they can't all be winners. Mike Flannigan had a hit with Hill House. He had a hit with Dr. Sleep. And maybe Bly Manor, he needed a break from transformative storytelling. And hopefully he comes back in the 3rd installment with something that just is transcendent. I guess we'll see. But I did enjoy it, and I think it's worth a watch for everybody. You're looking for something interesting to watch, Bly Manor will hit you there. But if you haven't seen Hill House, you should definitely see Bly Manor and then Hill House, because if you go the other way around, you're going to be disappointed in Bly Manor.
So my rating is different than yours. And I was just looking, you were saying, he had a hit with Hill House. He had a hit with Dr. Sleep. And I was looking at some of his other stuff, and I realized he's done a lot. He's basically a horror director, is kind of where his skill set is at.
Did he direct the Jack Black one, the house with the clock in its walls?
No, I don't remember who did that one, but he did one, Oculus.
Oculus is very good.
You liked it? Maybe I'm thinking of it's a different movie, because is that the one with the mirror?
Yeah, that's the one with the mirror.
I did not like that one.
That's a good one.
I didn't like it. My wife and I did not like that movie. I was kind of bored. But that's fine if you liked it. There's plenty of things I like that you don't.
Sure. No, Oculus is good.
But he also did the Ouija one, right?
Okay. I didn't see that one.
Which wasn't good. But he has done two that are some of my favorite horror properties I've ever seen. So maybe it's just, you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get something really good. You're going to get something down the middle of the road. Or because he did one called Hush that I have not seen yet, that I'm told is very good.
What's that about?
Netflix. If it's the one I'm thinking about, it's the one with the intruder. Yeah. So there's an intruder that goes in this house of this deaf and mute writer who's retreated to the woods in this house, and now she must survive. She's not able to call police. She's not able to do anything. So I hear that movie is very good, and I've been meaning to watch it for some time. And I've even just the cover that I'm looking at right now is kind of.
So that actually sounds like an adaptation of another movie that came out in the 60s. She was in Hill House.
Yes, she was. But this guy looks creepy as all hell, doesn't he?
Yeah, nice mask. So that I think is an adaptation of another movie that came out in the 60s about a blind woman who has to deal with a home intruder and is being stalked by a home intruder. And that movie has a terrific scene where the intruder kind of pops out because the lights are off in the house all the time. She's blind, right? So she doesn't need to have lights on. So it's to be walking around in the dark is nothing new to the character, but to the audience, you don't know what's going on. You're only seeing bits and pieces of it. And then eventually there's this really terrifying moment where the killer just kind of pops out of the shadow and you're like, oh no, she was right, run. And it looks a lot like what Hush is. So, hopefully he's playing on Scared of the Dark or something like that with the audience. And I'd be interested in seeing that. But
I think it's on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, but I know it's on one of the streaming networks because I have it saved in one of my lists for any one of those streaming networks. But so what the point I was trying to make was he has some good ones, he has some bad ones. He's just like any other horror.
Yeah, Hush is on Netflix right now.
Is it? Yeah. It's a lot like Rob Zombie. There's some Rob Zombie horror movies that I really like, and there's some that I don't like. I think it's just kind of, they're not all going to be winners when it comes to horror properties, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like there are a lot of really, really good horror stories out there. And I feel like horror is at its best when it does what Hill House does, which is it ties those supernatural terrors to real life trauma.
Yes.
And when it's doing those two things in tandem, and the real life trauma and the supernatural horror are both kind of being resolved at the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where horror is at its best. And I think
that's how you feel it.
Yeah, I think Hill House did that. I think Dr. Sleep did that. And so I they were better for it. And one of the things about Dr. Sleep that I thought was so great was that they told you there were things that were scarier than death.
Yeah.
And dying wasn't the most horrible thing. There were scarier things, which is like, human suffering. And that was a fascinating thing because a lot of horror it's like as soon as you die, that's the end. And they don't really give you any hope. Whereas Hill House gives you hope. Dr. Sleep gives you hope that as soon as you get through this horrible thing, whether you live through it or you die through it, there's hope on the other side.
That's
And
what
that
I
was
hate
really
about certain horror movies that you see, like everything's tied up in one nice little bow, right? Like the end of the movie, they're driving away from the haunted house or whatever it could be. And then all of a sudden they're driving the car and it turns out the thing that was haunting them there.
Freddy
falls.
Krueger is in the car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I'm like, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. Like, why can't horror movies, like, there has to be that little glimmer of hope. And Hill House does that really well. But I don't know. Well, my rating for this, I think I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. I just didn't like it that much.
Sure.
And then the part that was most intriguing to me, I just never felt like it was resolved, which was the boyfriend that gets hit by the truck. Like, I just didn't feel that resolution. I thought the Miss Jessel character and Peter, they were just kind of obnoxious most of the time. And then the other thing,
they weren't really likable at all.
No.
I really hated any time we spent on those two.
And then the uncle, there was a storyline with the uncle. Was he being haunted by himself?
Yeah, like he hated himself, right? He thought of himself as this an evil person, and so he was being haunted by this dark version of himself, and that's something that you can relate to, right? You can't really get away from your past. You can't get away from the choices that you've made. And that's something that I've experienced in my own life. Like, you have to get up and look at yourself in the mirror every day, knowing all of the things that you've done. And they're not all great. Some of them are pretty bad.
Yeah.
And eventually you have to face yourself in order to move on.
See, and with that, I think there was a lot of unique ideas that just weren't delivered well, with the uncle and his guilt and the boyfriend, the fiance or whatever. The only thing that I felt was done really well was the housekeeper. Yeah, I thought that was the best storyline of this whole thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And it had a very Others type feel to it, didn't it?
Yeah,
her whole story was very much in sync with what the Others is, where she doesn't realize she's dead. And then they kind of had that dreamscaping thing, whatever they call it, which I thought was a really unique idea, these moments replaying. But just nothing was delivered that well. And so I think I'm pretty firm on my 2 out of 5.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to fight you.
If I'm watching a show, it's the middle of the episode, it's a tense moment in the episode, and I stop the show to show my wife YouTube clips of the one that I liked better, that's a major issue.
Yeah.
I should not be stopping the show. And I did that a couple times where we were just kind of bored. I kept watching it because I had to for the show, but we were just kind of bored, and I'd be like, oh, remember this in Hill House? And we talked more through it than we got out of it. So next week is Book of Blood. So I'm really hoping that one redeems our little track record we've had of these.
2019, 2018 were terrific years for movies and Netflix. 2020 has been really tough, I'd say. I mean, we've had very sparse, great things displayed in 2020. I thought Tenet was really good, but at the same time, it did have its drawbacks with the audio mixing, and but it was really good. But otherwise, it's like, man, 2019 was so good, and 2020 is just like so lame, just so dumb.
So far, the best movie I've seen this year. What's your best movie you've seen this year?
It's Tenet.
Mine might be Bill and Ted.
Yeah, Bill and Ted.
And Bill and Ted, it wasn't even the best of the three, but I really liked it. It was something fun,
Yeah, it was fun
from the mess that we're in right now with this whole Corona thing and stuff. But
best TV show, probably Cobra Kai.
Yes.
Cobra Kai, but that didn't even come out in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when season 2 came out. Season 1 came out, I think, a couple years ago on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And then season 2, I don't know if it was released to Netflix first or YouTube, but
I know it was YouTube because Netflix got 1 and 2 at the same time. And when Netflix hit, you guys had already seen it all. Or Matt.
I saw it on Netflix. I didn't see it on YouTube.
Matt had seen all of it already from Absolute Geek.
Okay.
It was Matt. Someone had seen it already and was telling me to watch it, and then finally it dropped on Netflix, and I binged the first 2 seasons and loved it, which season 3 comes out in January.
Yeah.
Which I'm really excited about. That has to be probably the best show I've seen this year. Utopia's been pretty good, though. I would definitely advise anybody to go watch Utopia, but I don't know. 2020 looks like a dud. We were supposed to get Black Widow this year. We're supposed to get
all the Disney Plus Marvel series.
Yep, which we are getting WandaVision in December and Mandalorian at the end of this month.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Come on, man, a little bit of optimism.
Yeah, this has been just a really rough year for entertainment.
It's been rough. Let's talk about a couple of the headlines that we've seen. So there's one that I wanted to hit on that has been going. It's still kind of rumored. I don't think anything official has come out, but Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield rumored to have signed on for Spider-Man 3, which I think is currently in pre-production right now. Like they're about to start filming it. So
okay.
I'm excited about that because we're basically getting a live Spider-Verse. Now, here's the thing. I want to put a caveat on this. If they give me the exact same thing I saw in that animated movie a year ago or whatever it was that come out, I'm going to be furious. Like, I want to see something new. Like, do it, but do it new, right? I don't want to see the same old, same old. Do you feel the same way?
I do. I think a lot of people are excited to see all of the Spider-Men get their due.
Yeah.
Get their pound on the back, get their gold leaf. And Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, they really kind of kicked off the whole superhero movie genre as we know it today. I know there's a lot of people say, well, what about Blade? What about X-Men? But Spider-Man was really, really fun. It was really bright, which is basically the tone of all of the MCU. It's bright and it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's not dark. It's not dour. Blade was really dark. X-Men still, like the filtering and everything, the feel of the movie was pretty dark. And Spider-Man had this very bouncy, gleeful, playful tone that kind of pervades all of the Marvel produced movies these days.
Which you could argue that they took the Christopher Reeves Superman movies and just kind of turned it up a little bit, right? Kind of turned up the charm a little bit of those old Superman movies and stuff. Like I always look at the Superman movies as being like that first real like comic book heavy hitter, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Adaptation. But then Spider-Man just dialed it up to 11, right? And Spider-Man 2, in my opinion, is still one of the best comic book movies ever made. Spider-Man 2 specifically with Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, and it's just a pinnacle of success as far as I'm concerned of comic book movies. So the Tobey Maguire movies in general just hold a solid place in every comic book lover or comic book movie lover's art, right? Wouldn't you say?
Sure.
Yeah. So it's cool to see, and it just kind of ended unceremoniously with the whole Topher Grace thing and the infusion of way too many characters, which is what I'm nervous about this movie. Because so far, there's been a lot of casting news with this movie, and I'm just wondering, is it going to get to the point where it's going to be too much?
Yeah, one of the things we talked about last night about this particular bit of news was how long does this movie have to be to fit all the characters in and still be good? And one of the things I suggested is maybe it could be a 4-hour movie. and really, if you're going to pack all of this storyline into one, to do it justice, you've got to have a much longer movie.
Well, Endgame's what, 3 hours, 3.5 hours?
It's a long movie.
Yeah,
it was about 3 hours long. It's just shy of 3 hours. I think it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. Yeah. And I don't want to see Into the Spider-Verse again. I don't think this is going to be Into the Spider-Verse again, because Into the Spider-Verse was about Miles Morales, and this is about Tom Holland, right? Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Tom Holland's Peter Parker. If they are going to bring these alternate versions of Spider-Man in, I think there's a lot of great ways to do it. And then you can also bring in Miles Morales if you have to.
I've heard they've already casted him.
Yeah, and you can bring in Spider-Gwen if you have to. Those were cool features of Into the Spider-Verse. And I just want to see it done. I want to see it be fun. I don't want to see it be a shot-for-shot remake like Disney is prone to do with its live-action remakes of its animated films. I don't want to see stuff like that. I want to see something surprising. I want to see something fun. And I want to see something that you're not giving us in 2020, which is a freaking good movie. So,
well, and here's what I would say is that when it comes to big team-up movies, I guess you could call it, right? Marvel is really the only one that's any good at it right now, if you think about it. I mean, Avengers was pretty good. Endgame and Infinity War were pretty good. The Civil War, even though it doesn't follow the comic book and it's not my favorite, was pretty good, right? So they've got a formula that works, and they're doing good stuff. I mean, we've seen other studios come and go that have not been able to do a good job at it. DC, namely Universal's Dark Universe, that tried to do it with The Mummy. They're just Marvel is the studio to do it well, in my opinion. And when Sony did Into the Spider-Verse, it was a surprise, right? Like, it was really,
it was really good.
It was really good movie. Like, forget that it's a cartoon; it's a good movie. And I'm hoping that they come out with something that's equally, if not better. So the other bit of news that I have, and I know you had something you want to talk about, was there
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk. So I don't know how to say her name. Tatiana
Maslany.
Maslany.
Uh-huh.
Tatiana Maslany. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay. She's saying she's not She-Hulk.
She's saying she's saying it's all a rumor. You guys, you guys, you're so nice. Thank you for thinking of me, but no, I'm not She-Hulk. And she came out and posted on her Twitter that it was all a big lie. It was all somebody's imagination. Well, I don't think that's true. I'll say I bet she was in negotiations for the part, and somebody got cold feet, whether it was Disney or her, and they said, look, maybe this isn't going to work after all. And so she had to come out and say, because she didn't quash the rumors as soon as they came out, right? It's been like a week.
Even came out and said, welcome.
Yeah, like it's been a long time. And she didn't come out right away and say, no, that's not true. It's been over a week since that rumor was circulating. So definitely there was something to the rumor, and maybe this just things fell apart. And so she had to come out and quash the rumor now that she actually doesn't have the part. But definitely seems weird that it took her so long to deny it.
So what I think happened is they were in negotiations. She's trying to negotiate contract, right? Somebody from her camp leaks it to see what fan reaction would be and tries to get leverage against Marvel, because we've seen that happen before. It's been long rumored that Ryan Reynolds is the one that released the Deadpool little clip. the animated clip of him voicing the character. It's been long rumored that he's the one that did that. He won't say it was him, but that little clip got his movie greenlit, right? You remember that whole thing?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So he created leverage, right? Got huge fan explosion. Everybody was excited, and he got his movie made. And Deadpool is one of the number one rated R-rated comedies of all time, right?
Right.
Made insane amounts of money. I think it's very possible that her camp released this information, see what fan reaction was, came back to the table and said, "See, everybody loves it. This is how much you have to pay me." And Marvel said, "No, we're not paying you that." Now, what I hope happens is that she's not cast and it's Allison Brie.
Yeah. No, that's not happening.
Well, Allison Brie's not doing Glow anymore. So,
dude, yeah. Kyle, if Kyle's still watching, I missed my cue. I was supposed to stop you from saying that because we knew it was going to happen. We knew you were going to say Allison Brie.
Man, she would be pretty. You don't like her?
I'm not saying she's not pretty and that she's not a good actress, but I just don't think she's right for this part.
Well, a lot of the internet would disagree with you.
Yeah, okay. The community subreddit, is that what you're going for?
Well, you've seen some of her other stuff. I mean, she's very graphic.
I've seen a lot of her other stuff. And yeah, she's done a lot of weird stuff, and she's done a lot of good stuff. Like that weird like
the horse one I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, the horse girl movie. That was so weird. So freaking weird.
Glow, which brings me to another piece of news. So Glow was supposed to come for a second season.
No, it had a second season.
Its last season. It was supposed to come for its fifth and final season, or fourth and final season.
Fourth season.
And Netflix said, "Just kidding."
Well, it was actually because of COVID. They were unable to get everybody on board with filming it, and they just decided to call it a day. They pulled the plug.
Just wait until things get better. I don't understand why they just can't wait. It's not like you have to let these people go do other contracts and then try to do it in a couple years when everything is back to normal. They did the same thing with The Society, which people are really upset about.
Well, the thing is, Lance, Netflix has a lot of financial obligations, and keeping people hanging around for that long, like, it can be a very big financial strain. And so rather than fight with them, they just say, you know what, we had a good run, and we'll see you later. And if it works out sometime in the future, so be it. But right now, we just can't make it happen.
I think it just sets a bad precedent when you announce to the fans that something's coming, and then it's not. So they officially announced that Glow, the final season, was coming. They made a big deal about it. There was info cards and everything, and then nothing. The Society had
but I don't think it's fair for you to lay the blame at Netflix. We don't know why exactly, other than they say COVID concerns, right? That's all they told us. We don't know who's the ones concerned with the COVID. Is it the actors? Is it production team? Is it Netflix? We don't know.
I'm sure it's everyone. I mean, everybody involved.
Maybe it's the state of California where they're trying to film it. Maybe they won't let them do it because of their humongous restrictions on businesses and outdoor activities. And you got to social distance all the time. And you can't do a show about wrestling if everyone has to social distance. It just can't happen.
Well, they're doing it every Sunday on Fox and CBS.
Yeah, but they don't film that in Los Angeles.
Well, they're playing football.
California.
They're playing football in LA.
Oh, football. Yeah, they do.
Football. Those guys are getting pretty close. I don't know if those helmets are keeping the COVID out.
Yeah, they're not doing a good job keeping out the coof.
But and the last thing I wanted to say was I didn't say this already, right? I think I'm having a dream surf. Michael B. Jordan is producing a Static Shock movie.
Yeah.
I'm hoping
this goes better than his his high-end Naruto fashion line.
What?
Dude, you don't remember? He teamed up with like some high-end fashion designer
To do Naruto clothes?
Naruto line of clothes for the men of taste, men of fashion, and also of ninja origin. Yeah, dude.
Are men fashion wearing Naruto themed clothing? Is that a thing?
Oh, dude. Coach. It was Coach. He teamed up with Coach, the fashion designer, and
I'm looking at a jean jacket right now. What self-respecting would wear this?
But he's got Naruto stuff that's like $1,000 for a jacket, $200 for a pouch, a ninja pouch. It's basically a fanny pack. Yeah, they did. It looks like they discontinued the Naruto line actually, but.
So this jacket would be how much in your estimation? It's a Coach jacket. This is from.
Yeah, I think that particular jacket was probably $400.
No, that's ridiculous. I can understand. Okay, I'm wearing a Green Goblin Funko shirt, right?
Yep.
$20, right?
Right.
It's okay. I'm gonna wear a character tee for $20. You tell me a $400 jacket, that thing better do my dishes. That thing better,
it better solve a lot of your problems. Yeah, it better freaking solve a lot of your problems for $400.
This just doesn't seem, and it doesn't seem like a $400 jacket, in my opinion. Like, I don't know. That's just ridiculous. Hopefully it does go better. Static Shock, I don't know. I'm assuming you watched it on the WB Kids.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Great show. I love that show, and I've been asking them to. I've been praying to the comic book movie gods to make a Static Shock movie for years because that was such a fun show as younger, and I'm hoping it happens, and I'm hoping they cast somebody good. So we'll see. But was there anything else you want to talk about before we call it a night?
No, that's it, man.
That's it?
Yeah.
Well, from us here at Couch Crunchers, thank you for tuning in tonight. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever next big streaming service is going to be next week. We'll be there too. And next week, we're going to be talking about Books of Blood that's on Hulu. It's a film that was released a week ago, right, Sam?
Yeah.
And it looks pretty cool. It looks much more in the horror genre that we're used to from some of these bloody horror movies. So we're excited to be watching that one. And then in 2 weeks, Max and Tyler will be back, and we got a special surprise that we'll be reviewing some old classics and comparing them for Halloween, a pre-recorded episode. So, yeah, until next time, keep on geeking on, guys.